Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, fellow badasses, and welcome to BOYBAS. I am traveling today, and it's 7 a.m. in California, so I will also need to have you let me know if there's any problems or lags. I don't know that there's a lot I'm going to be able to do about it. I do see that I am airing, but I can also tell that the internet is maybe a little slow, so I'm hoping that this message goes out. So if you want to just let me know how it is coming through, I would appreciate that. I am, as I said, in California, and I am still getting adjusted to the time effects. I started to reflect on sort of that feeling you get when you haven't adjusted to the time zone. And I think it's a similar feeling to today's topic, which is the law of gender. And so think about how you feel when you go to a different time zone and the uneasy feeling that you experience. You sometimes can't sleep. You wake up way too early at times. You sometimes can't keep your eyes awake, but it's only 7 p.m. at night. And so think about it. Your body clock is at odds with that new time zone. So you feel mistimed and unreliable. And you may even feel foggy or disoriented and physically off when, even though you're awake. Yes, good morning. I see some people coming in, so let me know that you can hear me, that there's not a lag. So just let me know that you are also able to hear me. And so I started to think further about the time zone differences and how sometimes those small routines sometimes gain a strange sort of contradictory rhythm, as if the world is sort of moving at a different tempo, and that inner compass that we have seems unsure. You know, am I supposed to feel sleepy now, or am I supposed to feel awake? And on top of that, you know, the answer also keeps shifting. And so today, the law of gender is about balancing that masculine and feminine energy. And it has that similar feeling when you're off, when you go to a different time zone. And so that jet lag and sleepiness mirrors that imbalance we feel when we aren't in alignment with our masculine and feminine energies. And when one dominates the other, for example, our current culture's emphasizes on action and progress. And the other is more about reflection and rest. And we can sometimes feel hollow or in a scarcity mode when we allow one or the other to dominate the other. And when perfect. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. She let me know that she can hear me and there is no lag. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you. And so when our inner clock sort of runs differently from our outer world, we may feel compelled to sort of push forward, which is the yang part of the balance. So the yang being that masculine. But while our body and our intuition, so the yin, which is the feminine, calls for a pause and a listening. And so that feeling that happens, that fog, that fatigue that appears in our body and energy, sometimes tries to retune itself to a new rhythm. And just as our circadian system adjusts to our new time zone, we still may not feel necessarily in tune, but we're retuning and getting back in that rhythm. And the same can be said with the law of gender. That balance offers a lens to understand that alignment as an internal harmony, not a rigid stereotype of who we need to be because we're a man or a woman, but it allows for a flexible balance of energies. And so when we invite both energies to be present, that is when we start to see action as well as reflection, direction, and warmth. And we create a steadier, more resilient rhythm. And so I want to say hello to some people. So as you are joining us, please say hello. Let me know that you are here. I saw J-Ro pop up first thing, 10 o'clock right on the dot Eastern time. It's 7 o'clock here. She says, good morning from the Sunshine State. Have a fantastic show. I'll listen while working. I'm intrigued. The law of energy. Love it. Sending good vibes your way. Thank you so much, J-Ro. Today's also an amazing day, and I'll talk more about that as well as to why it's going to be an amazing day. Kim says, good morning and happy Friday to one of my favorite badass friends. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Back to you. Hope you have an amazing day, and thank you for being a badass friend as well. She also says, happy wedding. Yes, I'm going to be talking about that as well. And then Carmen, yes, Carmen, I'm on your time zone. She says, good morning, my favorite beautiful badass. Have the best weekend. Give Kennedy a big hug. I sure will. All right. So thank you guys. Continue to say hello as you are joining us. As you guys sort of see, I also do have an amazing celebration today that will be happening. And my bonus daughter, Kennedy, is getting married. She's getting married to Jared. We took a train ride yesterday. It was a steam train. It was very nice. They had these carved out wood seats that we all sat on. The conductor ended up mispronouncing Jared's name. He ended up calling him Jacob, and the entire train goes, Jared. He was like, oh, okay. And then the next time he ended up announcing it, he ended up saying, congratulations to Kennedy. And he didn't want to mispronounce, and I'm not sure he figured out what his actual name was. But it was a very beautiful day, just going down in the woods, seeing some of the big trees that surrounded us. Also just seeing what it is that they do to sort of rebuild the beauty. So they also do controlled fires. So we saw a lot of that. So a lot of the trees were burnt in order to, allow for that cultivation, that creation again, which also very much is in alignment with today's topic as well. And so, as I started to think about Kennedy getting married, one of the things we may overlook when we are choosing a spouse is how we will support each other. We think about all the other things a lot of times, but we don't really ask some of the questions that are probably most important aspects in life. So understanding the law of gender can really help us identify and sort of cultivate a space for both that assertive vision and also the gentle care that is required in a marriage. And it's also how we can support each other in friendships, families, and communities. And by bringing our whole selves to the table, that is when we see a magical thing happen. And my hope today is today's discussion will nudge us towards that greater balance and perhaps even something that is a lasting value to help make this world a better place. And so before I continue on, I also just want to say to Kennedy and Jared, to the bride and the groom, may your journey together illuminate paths towards harmony. May you listen, support, and grow together to create a home where love thrives. So wherever you're at, if you could join me, I'd like for you to hold up your water, your coffee, your tea, whatever you're drinking, to Kennedy and Jared, to a lifetime of happiness, laughter, and harmony. Cheers. I needed that. All right. Miss Carrie's here. She says, I'm late to the party. Where are you? Yes, I am in California. I am in Tenaya, so it's Tenaya resort. We're actually in one of their cabins, and we're going to be going to Yosemite Park to Glacier Point as my bonus daughter is getting married today. It's going to be just a beautiful wedding, just a beautiful sight. We only have about 22 people that are here to be able to celebrate her. We already got together last night. She's already done some pre-wedding photos, and they were already amazing. So I'm looking forward to today. Both my kids are here with us, so I was glad that all bonus kids and my child are here to be able to witness this today. So thank you. Yes, Carmen says cheers. Kim says yes, cheers to the bride and groom. So thank you guys. All right, well, let's dive in. So, with the law of gender, it's also known as sort of the yin and the yang. And today, what we're going to be covering is really the core definition of the law of gender and also what it's not. And then we'll be talking about and looking at the energies at a glance. So we'll be talking about the differences between the masculine and feminine energy, and then why recognizing the energy, is important and how we use it in our daily lives. We'll also be touching upon common misconceptions and signs of imbalance. And then we'll also touch upon practical steps to rebalance when our energy feels out of sync. And so thank you, Karina, for joining us as well. She says, happy wedding day to the groom and bride. So thank you, Karina. And so I also want to call upon my ecosystem as well. Karina is an amazing person, and she has some amazing skills of just not only organization, detail-orientedness, things like that. She is looking for a position. And so if anyone knows of anything that someone that is really just a very intelligent person that really is someone that can get things done, get things organized, and just her detail-orientedness, she is looking for a position. So I do want to call her out for anybody that might be listening. And so thank you so much for joining us, Karina. So in the law of gender, as I mentioned, it relates to the idea of the yin and the yang, and it states that the masculine and feminine energies exist in everything. So the law states that we all have the potential to express both our feminine and masculine energies, and both can be found within us regardless of our sex. And so we'll be talking about that even more. But growing up, many youths learn to hide parts of themselves. Sometimes boys are teased about that feminine trait, told, man up, or, hide those feelings, things like that. And girls sometimes are deemed, when we are deemed too assertive, we sometimes are told, that we're not feminine, we're not a lady. And so what we want to do today is sort of challenge those rigid scripts that don't really erase our culture, but it allows people to be authentically themselves and also grow beyond those limiting expectations. And we're also going to talk about how sometimes those traditional ways of looking at things can also negatively impact us as we are exploring our energy in both the feminine and the masculine. And so when we start to think just from a high level perspective of, well, what is masculine energy? It is, think about taking action. That represents masculine energy. And while trusting and receiving represents the feminine energy. And so just in that, you can see that we need both. If we are not receiving, we are not tapping into that feminine side. And so if we're only always in action, you can see how there can be a burnout. And so we're going to talk about that a bit more. So I do want to pose a question to everybody. And so I'm just going to add this into the chat. Let's see whether it posts or not out here. So give me just a second. All right. So the question that I have for you is, when faced with a challenge, do you tend to dive into action and problem solve with that logical aspect to you, or do you first seek to understand maybe the emotional landscape and connect with others' feelings? And so that's the question I have that I want to pose to the group right off the bat, just to see how you tend to do things. I also would be interested, those that have worked with me, which do you find that I do? So I would be curious just to understand what you think how I show up as well. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the common misconceptions that we need to clear up. So the masculine is not about being a man, and feminine is not about being a woman. Everyone has both. And feminine also isn't weak, and masculine isn't dominant. But, we have both the power and the shadow side amongst us. And that's really what we will end up looking into, is that the feminine is the shadow side and the masculine is the power side. And we can't be in balance. We can't be 50-50 all the time. We have to be able to adjust to what the situation is. So everything is situational in what is needed in the moment. And it's understanding which is needed and being in harmony and being in flow is really what understanding about these energies, understanding what is needed in the moment. And so as we start to dive into the energies and understanding them a little bit more, I want to just give you a high level understanding, and then we're going to dive into these. So masculine energy traits, which is the yang, those are action, direction, structure, focus, boundaries, and giving. Whereas the feminine, the yin, is our intuition. It's the creativity. It's the receptivity. It's the flow. It's the nurturing. It's the being. It is the receiving. And so the healthy expressions that emerge when we are responsive to the moment and we're not locked into that fixed script or that rigid idea of who we must be. And in this framework of the law of gender, creation happens at the dynamic intersection of both that masculine and feminine energy. So both that yin and that yang. And so each of those energies bring its own qualities, and each are able to adapt to the needs of the situation. And so let's dive in a little bit more onto the masculine side. So when we talk about some of those masculine qualities, we're talking about action and doing. So I'm driving set, I'm going to achieve the goals. I'm going to initiate this project. I'm going to solve the problems. So it's the action and the doing. That's the masculine. It is the logic and the focus. So when we are utilizing our reason or our logic for decision making, we tend to have this single focused concentration on the problem. That's when we're in our masculine. When we are assertive, and also when we're setting boundaries. So this is sometimes characterized by confidence or decisiveness, or maybe the ability to set and hold those boundaries. That is when we are in our masculine. When we provide structure. And when we are providers, that is also masculine. And that is embodied in the role of being able to offer safety or direction or groundedness. Uh, so it's those things that are the masculine. And the masculine is also the external focus. So it involves outward directions. We're looking outward and we're identifying what it is in the world that what needs to happen. So it's focused on the outward and focused on making an external impact. And so the opposite of that, or the balance of that, is the feminine, which is the yin. And that's about being receptive. And so it's a state of allowing and receiving. It's about embracing that fluidity and focusing on the present moment. So being as we are right now, focused on this particular moment in time. It also is about intuition and emotions. And so it is guided more by our feelings and having empathy. And it's also that inner knowing within us. It is also the creativity and the connection that we have. So that's probably what we know it the most for, is that nurturing, compassion, collaboration, and that creation of community. And then it's also vulnerability and flow, which we talk a lot about on this show. And so it represents a strength of being fond of vulnerability, and also being adaptable and sensitive, having a sensitive approach to something that we're doing, having that flow of understanding that we have to be able to adapt to what the situation is. And then lastly, it is that internal focus. So instead of that outer world that the masculine focuses on, it is more inward. And so we're focusing on our energy that emphasizes peace and love and connection. And so you can see when we balance both of those energies and both are present and accessible, we are weaving our effort with ease. And we are taking ambition and applying it also with empathy. We are also dealing with wakefulness, so being awake, with also taking time to rest. And I also mentioned earlier that it was about responsiveness. And what responsiveness really means related to the law of gender is that when we think about what we do before we get into action, when we listen before we act, we pause to understand what's actually needed rather than enforcing a predetermined plan. When we are open to flexible direction, we can lead with clarity that is required. And when we step back and listen, we are nurturing and we are providing more valuable insight into that direction that we need to take. And when we maintain that situational attunement, we then understand the best path isn't always more of one energy. It's the right balance for the context of whatever that situation is. And so when we establish also boundaries with openness, we can hold boundaries, which is like clarity or standards or commitments, but we remain open to new information and evolving circumstances. And so I want to see what you guys have said. So let me go back up real quick. Let's see. Carrie says, if it is a problem that is only attached to me, I dive in. If it involves others, I ask, do you need me to just listen, or do you need me to brainstorm solutions? I like that. Happy to do either. Sarah, I think you are great at getting to the issue behind the issue. Okay, I love that. Thank you, Carrie. Also, Jennifer says, I've been masculine plenty to be able to tackle huge challenges and to have the strength, structure, and courage to handle what I was faced. Take action. Have the tool to survive both balance, good balance of both. I agree. Thank you, Jen. Karina says, remember the book Men Are From Mars? Oop, let me pull that up. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Gray explains how men and women have different communication styles, emotional needs, and behavioral patterns. And there is some truth in that. And it is very funny and interesting how these are traced or embedded into us genetically. How growing up, boys and girls have different emotional approaches. Yeah, and I think it's also interesting, Karina, that I do wonder if, I think part of that is genetically we do have some, but I have also seen, I will say that I have made assumptions that in the past that women are like this, men are like this, and as I actually sometimes really dive in, I find that that's actually maybe not true sometimes. I find that it's also sometimes that environment in how it is that we were taught. And the reason I say that is that I have always resonated more with the masculine energy, but that's also because of how I grew up. Like my mother was a very strong mother. And I was the saying of my dad was shit or get, and it was like, get with it. So I was that masculine. I was doing. I was getting stuff done. I was actually in misalignment with my feminine. And I think at those voices that we hear growing up also influence which way we may have been pushed one way or the other. I wasn't told as a female that I couldn't do anything, or I needed to be a woman, or I needed to be prim and proper, or all of those types of things. I was just allowed to be me. And I was, doing, but I was also told probably more of those masculine traits as well. Like I said, the shit and the get, and I could accomplish anything that I want. And so whenever I think about it, I actually had an imbalance of the feminine side, which I've had to learn as I've continued to grow. So I do wonder, I do see that, genetically, there may be some of that. I also do think environment influences us as well. And so I'm curious what you think about that. And so thank you for that. All right. Well, I also want to have you imagine this in sort of a visual way. So imagine that feminine is the seed, it is the idea, it is the potential. And the masculine is really that pollen, it's the activation, it's the action. And so creation happens when both the idea and the action happens. And neither is sufficient alone. We need both that feminine, which is the idea or the potential, and the masculine, which is the activation or the action. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, just some water, hear from you guys as you are also thinking about these different things. All right. And so I want to get into why it matters. And so from a personal growth standpoint, when we make room for both energies, it really helps us to respond rather than just react. And this is one of the things that I have been working on from a personal growth perspective, is that I'm action. I'm typically, jump in, let's get shit done. What do I need to do? How do I need to problem solve? What I have found is when I take a little bit more time to reflect and ask for more input, or take some time to really see what I feel inward, that feminine side, that's when I gain even more clarity in things. I do think that in a lot of times we do need to be able to take that action. Like we need quick response. Let's, especially like in life-threatening situations or things that, people are going to be harmed or things like that, that being able to quickly jump into that masculine is warranted. But in a lot of ways, when we think about our relationships, and even just in business or things like that, sometimes taking that pause or that moment actually helps us even more. And that's one of the things that I've really been focusing on to help me with that personal growth is calling upon the one that maybe doesn't come as easy or as intuitively for me. And then when we look at relationships, we balance the energies to improve communication and trust and connection. So by doing that listening, we're developing that trust to be able to have a better connection. And when we think about everyday, the everyday impact to us, to really make better decisions when we're listening, to be able to then make the decisions, it also can help us reduce stress. I know for me, this has been one of the biggest things is, taking that pause and sitting back and listening helps to sort of reduce that stress of the decision that we need to make. And then it also just makes us more resilient as well, because we're pulling upon both of those energies. And so when we start to look at the imbalance of the energies, we think about when we are over masculine, we are burning out. And so when we're calling upon that feminine energy, it helps us to reduce that burnout. Where the opposite is when we are over feminine, we are in stagnation. So we're stuck. We don't know what decisions we need to take. So we're perpetually in that, indecisiveness. And so sometimes we just need to take one step to be able to get out of that stagnation. Even if it's a wrong decision, it's a decision. And then we can get more information and then go back between the feminine of thinking and also then making decisions. So you can see how the two are required, and sometimes we might be burnt out. So we need to take some time to rest. And then that stagnation, we're perpetually stuck in an indecisiveness. And sometimes we just need to make it, as my, dad would say, I don't know if he would use this word, but, we just need to make a fucking decision sometimes. And, just make it, even if it's, like I said, the wrong decision. And so that one of the things it does is it improves decision making. So we call upon our intuition first, so that feminine side, and then we're ready to execute. We're now able to pull upon that masculine side to take that next step. And then we also can look at this from a relationship perspective as well. So balancing that listening and leading and the receiving and the giving. So when we're not doing those things, when we're not listening and we're only leading, we are not pulling upon the information that we might need to be able to help us to better lead. And then the vice versa, when all we're doing is listening and we're not willing to step up and take a stance or take a lead, and we're constantly letting someone else make the decisions, we then may find ourselves in that imbalance of being taken advantage of, or going the wrong direction because someone, didn't, we're not taking the time to really step up and let people know other things that need to happen. Then, we also look at, when we're looking at overall other signs of imbalance, the overmasculine might show up by constant pushing or it might show up as control. I need control of the situation. It is also impatience. So if we're feeling that, I just need a decision, that could show up in that impatience of not allowing more information to come out. And as I said, it shows up with burnout. It also shows up with numbness to the intuition. And what that means is really not taking the time to be able to listen to our intuition. We're sort of ignoring it, and just going and taking action and not really listening to that inner self. When we are looking at the over feminine, we are then finding ourselves maybe in procrastination mode. We might be indecisive. We also might be over accommodating. So yeah, whatever you think, just not willing to step up and also contribute to the decisions that need to be made. We might also see it with a lack of boundaries. So we're constantly allowing people to overstep our boundaries, and to the detriment of ourselves. It also shows up with avoidance. So in sometimes situations, sometimes people will avoid it. So if I don't talk about it, it's a non-issue. But you'll notice that it keeps coming up and up until we take that time to do something and say something, or give our perspective, or really dig in and understand why it is that we're truly avoiding a situation. All right, I got some comments coming in. Let me come here. I agree. Environment plays a huge role as well. Something is inherited and something is gained while growing up. There was a study back in the 80s when the twins were intentionally separated while placed into adoption. Yep, just to see what happens. What is the major influence while growing up? Genes or environment? Well, it showed that both actually are important in shaping us. 100%. I love that, Karina. It really is the combination of the both. It is the genes that are within us, and the things that make us who we are, but it's also the environment that can stifle us or push us down to not be the full person that we can be. She also says, my belief is that the decision-making situation has nothing to do with being more or less masculine or feminine. It's more a personal characteristic. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Karina. I appreciate that. We also have Abbas joining us. Good morning, Abbas. Thanks for joining us. We're just about to wrap up the imbalance side of things when we're talking about the feminine and the masculine. So thank you for joining us. And please join the conversation as we continue on. All right. So some of the other signs of imbalance some of the shadow expressions are, for example, on the masculine side can be aggression. So instead of assertiveness, it's that we're being aggressive with someone. Versus the feminine side would be passivity. So being more passive in the things that we're doing. We're sitting back. We're just, we're not stepping up, where the other one is, I'm not only being assertive, but I'm being maybe belligerent or aggressive in how I'm acting towards someone. There is also rigidity. I never can say that name, being rigid. And that is a shadow expression of the masculine. So when we have that fixed mindset, we are rigid. No, this is the way it's going to be. This is the only way that it can be. There's no other possibilities in life. That is when we are in our shadow expression of the masculine. Whereas the shadow expression of the feminine, the opposite of that is chaos. And so it's just a mess. There's no structure. And so having structure is important. But when we are so rigid that we don't allow for any type of flexibility or adaptability, that is not being in, that is a sign of imbalance, or the opposite is it's just so messy. It's chaos. There's nothing in structure that allows us to be able to move forward. All right, I'm going to take a little bit more water, and then we're going to get into some ways that we can rebalance and efforts that we can take. All right, let's see where we are on time. We're about 40 minutes in, so perfect. It was very surprising to me. I never thought that I could do this on my own. I do want to say that I really appreciate each of you joining for the conversation. I really do enjoy the interaction with other people, but I do have to say that this has allowed me to be able to also prove to myself that I can, continuing to push myself to do things that I think that maybe I can't do. And so it's been a really great experience doing this solo. It's really required me to tap into other parts of myself. So I thought I might just share that. All right. So what are some practical ways that we can rebalance when we recognize that we are being in that shadow side of our masculine or feminine side? So one of the things that I have found helpful, the feminine side is to pause before action. And so the feminine side is to take 2 minutes and just breathe and to check in with our intuition. And so I thought we might take, at least like 30 seconds to a minute just to be able to do that. I would like for you to be able to check in and with yourself and tell me like what visuals come up or what feelings come up, or maybe you have a pain or something like that. So I want to take a moment just to do that. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a timer. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's do 1 minute, and we're just going to check in with ourselves. All right, get comfortable. Go ahead and start to breathe in. Just regularly breathe in, breathe out. Whatever's natural for you. And then you might take some deeper breaths. Hold it. Really release and let it all out. I tend to do 4 counts in, hold, and then let out for 4 counts. That was already a minute. You can see how, I don't know, just even with that minute, just even with a couple of breaths, how your body starts to feel more relaxed. If we took this time to do it a little bit longer, we really could then tap into some of the things that our body is feeling, or the images that are coming up. And what I found is the intuition, by breathing, it allows me to be able to tap in and understand what my unconscious is trying to tell me. And it's also a lot of people, feel like it's really tapping into source or tapping into God, tapping into the divine. And that really is the feminine. The feminine is allowing us to be able to connect. Not only with our body, but also with information that is available to us. And so with that, by just taking that step, we then can choose to have one clear step, next step. So we talked about, when you feel imbalanced, it's taking the time to do the feminine. But the adverse is that we also need to then go, okay, I'm going to take one step to get clearer information. And that is the masculine that we do. So when we feel stuck, when we feel unsure, we can take time just to do this breathing intuition check-in, see what we see. And a lot of times I'll even research, like I'll go look and see what it is that says. But again, that's going to the masculine. One of the other things that I found is that I can also just sit there and my intuition will continue to bring. So if I really set in my feminine and really continue to sit there and not do that research, I actually tend to find it myself. I tend to find the connection of like what is going on maybe in my life or the things that are bothering me and why it is I'm seeing certain images that are happening. I did this the other day, and my first inclination is go do research. I was like, I want to go see, what does this mean? I can't even remember what it is I visually saw, but I was like, I want to see what this means. And my depth psychologist was like, stop, that's the masculine side within you that is coming out. It's the action that you're wanting to do. Like you don't have a problem with the action side. It's the tapping into the intuition side and seeing what comes. And I also do have a strong intuition. It's also allowing more time for that to be able to get those answers that a lot of times we're really seeking. All right, so I wanted to just give you an idea of one of the things that you can do to be able to get into rebalance. One of the other things is to also understand boundaries versus being receptive. So saying no cleanly is the masculine. And what I mean by cleanly is that sometimes we have this feeling inside, oh, but if I say no, oh my gosh, what are they going to think? Or, oh my gosh, what does that mean about me? So it's being able to just say no, even if it's a no, thank you. Do we feel okay with just saying no cleanly, meaning I don't have to add all of this extra, reasons as to why it's a no. And I also am feeling confident internally and at peace internally, which is peace is in the feminine side, but feeling the clarity of this is in alignment with what it is that I know that I'm supposed to be doing. Then it's also protecting that space for the yes that really allows the nourishment of allowing for the possibilities. So it's being receptive to the situation. So if we're tending to want to say no to things and we don't always say yes to things, maybe it's the adverse that if we're so concerned with being sort of a pleaser in what it is that we're in the communication that we have with people, sometimes we are overly yes. But sometimes we're really good at saying no, but we're closing off space for the possibilities in things. And I know you guys have probably seen that movie called Yes Man, where he was constantly saying no, no, no to things. And so being able to say no is good. And also being able to say yes can also provide possibilities to things that we might close ourselves off to. I really love that movie because he had to say yes to everything, and it really showed him a different side to himself. So I would invite you to sort of play around. Maybe one day you can only say no, and maybe another day you can only say yes. So when you're in a moment that you almost immediately want to say yes or no, maybe pause and take a moment to see what the possibility is by saying the other one. So that's another way, a practical way to rebalance when we're finding that we tend to say no, which is the masculine, yes, or yes, which is the feminine. Try the opposite and see how that helps you. All right, I'm going to come to comments and see what is coming up here. Alice says, you can do all the things. Oh, and then you're beautifully doing it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Carrie says, practicing the pause is a great reset. I come from a long line of overreactors, and this is fantastic grounding tool to regulate my emotions. I have found that as well, Carrie. It's really been a game changer. And when you really think about a lot of the things on the secular side, so in religion, as well as things just in the spiritual world, having that reset is something that is a part of each of those things that are really teaching us on how to find our inner self, that we contain the answers. And we have the ability ourselves to be able to do the things that we really are needing in life. And we can also check in and find all of the answers that we really need by going inward, by doing that feminine. And when I think about just the world in that we aren't necessarily always embracing that, or it feels weird, and it's not something necessarily we've been taught. It's something that I have found really helpful to really just take that pause to be able to reset and find those answers. Lisa, thank you so much for joining. She said, I'm running errands, but we'll catch on the team replay. Thank you so much. Stop to say hi to you, fabulous badasses. So thanks for quickly checking in. We look forward to hearing your comments later on. All right, Carrie says, no is a complete sentence. Yes, it is. And yes is a complete sentence. And so we need to be able to understand which is warranted in the moment. And are we feeling, are we doing it in either or in fear? And that's really I think the biggest thing when we start to look at, are we doing it in a balanced way? Because we're in flow, we're feeling at peace with the decision, or are we doing it out of maybe that fear mode as well? All right, Nick is joining us. Thank you so much. She said, heavy morning, so glad I made it. Oh, well, I hope, Nick, you were here for the moment where we did a little bit of pause and rebalance. So we did a little bit of breathing in and out to be able to help us with our heavy morning. So I hope that provides a little bit more ease for you and things become lighter for you. Abbas also says, I'm really bad at saying no. Uh-oh. All right. Well, first we've got to change the way that you're gonna think about that. So I am still learning to say no. So when we say we're really bad at something, guess what? We're going to continue to be bad at it. So Abbas, what I would like you to start to do is look at how you can reframe that. So I am continuing to learn how to say no. And that's really the first key, is changing our thoughts and rewiring that we're not bad at it. We're just relearning. We're unlearning in a lot of ways. And so I would love to hear more about why it is you feel that way. And maybe your challenge today is to maybe look at things and start to say yes to some things and see where that opportunity comes for you. And so Nick also says, pause, ponder, proceed. I love that. Productive outcome. So thank you so much, Nicole, for that. I love that. The 3 P's, a productive outcome. All right, guys. All right. So as we start to look at some other things that we can do, we can also, and I know we've talked about this in the past, is things that we can practice that can be applied based on feminine versus masculine. So feminine is journaling. It is taking time to write down what it is we're thinking internally. It is also slow walks. So again, having time to really think and be able to appreciate what is going on around us. It is mindful receiving. So as you're listening to this, you're thinking and just receiving the information and being mindful about what it is that the information that's coming to you is saying. It's also taking time to have creative play. And I think that this is one of the things that really can help more people. As a child, we were very much in our feminine. Like we would take time to have, time to just creatively play and do things. And as we become older, and we get into that adult mode, we don't take so much time to be able to really have that creative play. So those are some of the other things that you can do if you're needing to tap into more of the feminine side. Now, if you're good at those types of things, but maybe making the decision or getting stuff done, if you're stagnant in those types of things, some of the things that you can do is set, for example, your checklist. So what are the things that I need to accomplish? And maybe it's saying, okay, each day I'm not going to maybe accomplish all of these things, maybe depending on how much is there, but I'm going to check something off. I'm going to check off 1 or 2 things. So if you are constantly feeling uneasy, I was talking with someone the other day, they were like, my house is always a wreck. I just don't feel like it. And one of the things that was said is like, okay, well, if you could look around and say, okay, what would I pick up right now? What is something that would make me feel more uneasy about my situation? And this was like, well, I would do this. I would clean my desk and then I would go do this. And we were like, okay, so go do that. Like that's the checklist. Those are the 2 things. And if you look at it in smaller lists, it's more manageable versus receiving all of this information of overload. We feel overloaded and we become indecisive and we don't actually take time to get things done. So we're in that chaos, we're in that mess, which is the shadow side of the feminine. Also looking at setting deadlines and making decisions by those deadlines. So a lot of times I will see people that'll be like, oh, okay, we'll get back to you. Okay, when are you getting back to me? Like if you don't set sometimes deadlines, you're going to end up not being in communication or in alignment with the other person. So having those deadlines and saying, I will get back to you on this day to let you know where we're going to be. It doesn't mean things have to be done, but we at least need to communicate and say, I will get back to you on this day. I will then have more information at that point to then be able to outline the timetable or things like that. So having deadlines also allows us to be able to be in that decisive mode, that masculine side of taking action. And then you guys have heard of SMART goals. So things that we're wanting to accomplish in our lives. So SMART goals are also something that can allow us to be in that masculine, setting out the goals that we need to accomplish. So think about things like at work or things you're wanting even in your life, setting that time-bound the things that are measurable, attainable. So all of those things that we want to accomplish, when we don't set sometimes goals for ourselves, all of a sudden we're a year beyond and we're like, wait, where did all the time go? I didn't set any type of goals and set a time bound of when it is I was going to accomplish these things. So that's when it's important to be more in our masculine. And so creative play is great, but if all we're doing is creative play and we're not setting those goals for ourselves, we're then not accomplishing and we're not getting to where it is that we want to be. And so I also want to remind you sort of the 1-2 rule. So for every major push, follow that with a recovery celebration to receive the results. And so when we're doing things, we like to, do, but sometimes we don't take time to really recover or celebrate what it is that we actually accomplished. And so the 1-2 rule is making sure that for every major push that we're doing, we're also taking time to recover and celebrate what it is where we have accomplished. All right. So I'm going to come into and talk a little bit about applications in our daily life. And so think about things that you're wanting to accomplish. Let's maybe talk about career. So when we are in our feminine, we are aligning with our purpose. We're understanding what it is we want to accomplish in life. And then we're aligning that purpose with then the next step, which is the masculine. So think about your career. From an alignment perspective, what it is you're wanting to, where it is you're wanting to be, you're establishing the purpose. Then the masculine is doing the ask. It is then pitching it. It is proposing. It is those types of actions that are then getting you in alignment from a career perspective. So no matter what the response is, you know what your purpose is. You now are asking, pitching it, and proposing it. And then you might circle back. If you get the no, for example, then might be, okay, well, I know that this is where I'm wanting to be. So is there another way that I can get it within where it is that I'm at, or do I need to look elsewhere? So it's those types of things that being in that feminine, then going to the masculine, and then circling back can help us to continue to accomplish what it is we're wanting from a career perspective. And then think about relationships. So the feminine is being that empathetic listener. We are taking time to really understand from our partner or from our friendships. We're listening to understand more about what it is that they're saying. And then the masculine is then saying, okay, here's the request. I think a lot of times people will do sometimes the empathetic part, but then we don't come back to then repair the conversation. We need to then have clear requests. Like if we're having issues in something, it's not going to allow us to be able to move forward if all we're doing is empathetically listening. We also need to state, okay, based on that listening or the having the empathy for someone, we're also saying, this is also what I'm going to do. Or the other person is saying, here's my request. So here's what it is that I am looking for in order for us to repair the relationship and to be able to have better conversations. All right. And then think about your overall health and well-being. So the feminine is the body cues and the things that we need to pay attention to. So if we're constantly feeling a particular way, we have body clues. It's also an invitation to rest. And so the masculine is establishing the consistent habits and structure to be able to make sure that we have that ability. I know in the past, I did not allow for the feminine side. I was constantly doing, and I would become overloaded. So I really had to learn and develop more consistent habits. So I had to allow time for journaling, for example, in the morning. Every 6 weeks, I go and get my hair done and get a massage. And so it's the masculine of structure and consistent habits of allowing for the rest and the things that we need to do from a feminine perspective. That is what allows us to be able to have more of a healthy well-being for us. And then one of the other things I wanted to also, from a daily perspective, to have you think about is creativity. And I love being creative. And so when you think about being creative, that feminine side is the dreaming. It is the vision. It is taking time to visualize what it is we want in whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's life, whether it's things that we're working on. But the masculine is then outlining and scheduling. So we can't actually accomplish that dream and vision until we've outlined and schedule it. So are we putting it on our calendar and taking time to be able to accomplish what that dream and that vision is? And then we also need to understand that we're not immediately going to accomplish that dream or that vision. We have that outline and that schedule, but sometimes we then need to listen to feedback or make iterations. So that's the feminine side of things. And then the masculine is going back and then accomplishing and the doing of that feedback. So taking time to be able to listen to that feedback and then identify how it is that we can then be in action related to that feedback. So I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of just some daily applications that can really help you to think about making sure that you're flowing back and forth between the masculine and the feminine. And a lot of times you notice that it's the feminine, then the masculine a lot of times. All right, so I want to leave you with some questions to ask yourselves. If you want these, I can type them out if you would prefer, but I'm just going to go ahead and just ask you. But if you want me to send you these questions afterwards, I can send them to you. So questions to ask yourself: when I am overexerting or maybe putting too much energy or effort into something, we can ask ourselves, what would receiving look like? And so think about times in your life when you are just putting in effort after effort. Sometimes we aren't necessarily allowing for the receiving. So when we are feeling too much of one way or the other, we can call upon the opposite energy to help us to reflect. And maybe by asking, when we're exerting too much energy, we can simply ask, what would receiving look like? Then also think about earlier when I was talking about the idea of the seed and how it wants to be fertilized. And so thinking about what idea wants to be fertilized is a question that you can ask. So within you, what is an idea or something that you a dream or a vision or something that you're wanting to be able to have accomplished? And then as you're doing that, think about what one bold action could I take this week to be able to then fertilize that particular idea. And so when we start to look at things in smaller actions, but maybe it's a bold action, that's what I want to sort of entice you to think about. Instead of taking just a small action, what is a bold action that I could take this week to be able to start to accomplish that particular idea or dream that I have? So another question I want you to think about is, where do I need more structure in my life? So maybe if you're feeling that chaos or that messiness, you would ask yourself, where do I need more structure? And then if you are feeling maybe a little too rigid or you're getting resistance back from people, you might ask, what might it benefit me to surrender? Because sometimes when we're so adamant that our idea is the right idea, sometimes it can help us to think about it in a different way and say, you know what, how might surrendering or stepping back benefit me in this particular situation? So overall, what does healthy masculine and healthy feminine feel like in your body? That's really what we're talking about today. And so give me just a moment. I'm going to drink some water real quick. Excuse me. So an hour and 10 minutes, that's when it really starts to get to me. All right. So final thoughts that I have for you today. Think about these particular ideas. And I want to invite you to write down these particular phrases. So vision invites while action initiates. So vision invites while action initiates. And so vision invites us to imagine a future with clarity and openness. And it names the direction we choose to go, where action initiates by taking the first concrete step and turning possibilities into tangible reality. The next one is, if we never receive, we can never harvest. So if you never receive, you can't harvest is the easier way to say it. You can't harvest. So receiving is the open-hearted stance that it really invites the ideas and the support and the nourishment that we really need, whether from people or opportunities or feedback. Harvesting is really that natural fruit of those inputs. So turning what you've gathered into tangible outcomes. So those skills, those projects, the relationships. And the magic happens when we work together. Listening and inviting input fuels that growth, while decisive action brings possibilities into form. Receiving is the feminine invitation, and harvesting it is the masculine work of bringing things to fruition. And when we cultivate both, that is when we can enjoy the fruits of our labor. The third one is structure protects your flow. And structure isn't about rigidity. I never can say that, about being rigid. It's the boundary that contains and guides our energy. So our creative flow can move more freely. So when we have clear edges and structure in place, our ideas can surge from that safe container, and it reduces friction and keeping us from derailing what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And then the last one is creation is the dance of the yin and the yang. And so creation is the dance of the yin and the yang. So creation thrives when we're receptive. And the nurturing quality of the yin then meets that active, assertive energy of the yang. And the two are not opposite to win or lose against. They are partners that balance, that renew, and propel the creative process. And when we have this in our lives, it's a beautiful thing. It's something I'm visualizing for all of you today. And I just want to thank you for joining us. We are going to be continuing the law of gender next week. And we are going to be having a special guest that's going to be joining us. We're going to be interviewing. I do want to just let you guys know that we're going to be doing 4 episodes this week in October, but coming in November and December, I'm only going to be doing 3. So I'm going to be taking some time to reset and to allow for some time with my family during the holidays. So I have reduced it down in November and December. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. And I also just want to thank you guys for the interaction today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I really appreciate you guys. And so I'm going to end with this with Karina says, as Scarlett from Gone with the Wind says, I will think about it tomorrow. So yes, it is good to pause when we have a need of that. So thank you guys so much. Have an amazing weekend. And I'm looking forward to an amazing wedding of my bonus daughter. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.